You know, I want to talk to you today about something rather extraordinary, something that once you see it changes everything, and that is this: life is a game. Now, when I say that, I don't mean it in any sort of cynical or dismissive way. I mean it in the most profound sense possible. Think about it for a moment. What is a game? A game is something we play, and the word play comes from the same root as the Sanskrit word Lila, which means the play of the divine. The Hindus have always understood this. They say that the world is Lila, it is the play of God. And what's more, they say, it is also Maya, which is usually translated as illusion. But that's a very misleading translation, because it suggests that the world is somehow false or unreal. That's not what it means at all. Maya comes from the Sanskrit root, which means to measure or to form. It's the same root we find in words like magic and meter. Maya is the art of illusion, yes, but in the sense that a great artist creates an illusion. When you go to the theater and watch a play, you know it's not real in one sense, but in another sense it's completely real. You laugh, you cry, you feel genuine emotions. That's Maya. That's the divine art. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The Hindus say that behind all this play, behind all this divine art, there is one self with a capital S, playing all the parts. In other words, you are not merely a separate individual confronting a foreign universe. You are the universe. You are what the Hindus call Brahman, the ultimate reality, pretending with enormous ingenuity to be all of us. Why would it do such a thing? Well, imagine for a moment that you were God. Imagine that you were omnipotent, that you could do anything whatsoever, that you knew everything, that nothing could surprise you. What would you do? At first, you might fulfill all your desires, create magnificent worlds, have wonderful adventures. But after a while, you'd get bored. You'd know exactly what was going to happen. There would be no surprises, no challenges, no risk. So what would you do? You'd begin to play games. You'd set up situations where you didn't know the outcome. You'd impose rules and limitations on yourself. You'd pretend to forget that you were God. You'd get lost in the game. And that, my friends, is exactly what has happened. You are God playing hide and seek with yourself. Now, the question becomes, how do we play this game well? How do we, as the Oriental philosophers would say, hack existence? Because there are ways of playing that lead to suffering. And there are ways of playing that lead to what we might call liberation or awakening. The first thing to understand is that most of us don't know we're playing a game. We think this is serious. We think this is real in a way that requires us to be anxious, worried, constantly planning and scheming. We spend our entire lives postponing. We say, when I graduate from school, then I'll be happy. Then we say, when I get a job, then I'll be happy. Then it's when I get married, then when the children are grown, then when I retire and suddenly we're dead. We never got around to actually living. This is because we've been hypnotized by what I call the ego illusion. We feel ourselves to be a little person inside our head, looking out at the world through our eyes, as if we were driving a car. We feel separate from everything else. We feel like strangers in the universe. And this feeling of separation is the root of all our anxiety. But this is a hallucination. There is no separate self. Think about it carefully. Where do you begin and where does the rest of the universe end? You breathe in the air. Is the air you, or is it the environment? You eat food. When does the food become you? When you swallow it, when you digest it, when it becomes part of your cells? You see, there's no clear boundary. You are not in the universe. You are the universe. You are an expression of it, just as a wave is an expression of the ocean. The wave might think to itself, I'm a separate thing, I'm different from all those other waves. But that's ridiculous. The wave is the ocean in motion. You can't have a wave without the ocean, and you can't have the ocean without waves. There are two ways of looking at the same thing. In the same way, you can't have an organism without an environment, and you can't have an environment without organisms. They go together. There are two aspects of one process. The Orientals have a phrase for this. They say that everything in the universe is mutually arising. Nothing exists by itself. Everything exists in relation to everything else. So when you see this, when you really see it, not just as an intellectual idea, but as a living reality, you realize that the feeling of being a separate ego is a hoax. It's a game we're playing. It's like being an actor who's forgotten he's acting and has become completely identified with his role. Now, when this is seen through, and by the way, it can't be taught, it has to be experienced, something remarkable happens. You don't cease to function as an individual. You still have your name, your personality, your particular perspective on the world, but you no longer feel alienated. You no longer feel like a stranger. You feel at home in the universe because you realize you are the universe. And then life becomes play in the most marvelous sense. You're still playing the game, but you're not playing it with that desperate seriousness anymore. You're playing it the way you might play chess or bridge, with engagement, with interest, with skill, but not with the feeling that your very existence depends on winning. Let me give you an example. Think about a game like chess. Now, chess is only a good game if it's challenging enough to be interesting, but not so difficult that it's hopeless. If you play against someone much better than you, it's no fun, you know you're going to lose. If you play against someone much worse, that's no fun either, there's no challenge. The interesting game is when you don't know who's going to win, when there's risk, when there's uncertainty. Life is exactly the same way. If you knew in advance everything that was going to happen to you, the exact day you would fall in love, the exact day you would get sick, the exact day you would die, it would be insufferably boring. The not knowing is essential to the game. The risk is what makes it interesting. But here's the thing. Most of us aren't comfortable with uncertainty. We spend our lives trying to control everything, trying to make everything secure and predictable. And in doing so, we squeeze all the juice out of life. We turn existence into a duty, into a problem to be solved, into work in the most dreary sense of that word. The Taoists have a wonderful concept called Wu Wei, which is usually translated as non-action or non-doing. But that's misleading. It doesn't mean being passive or lazy. It means acting in harmony with the nature of things. It means not forcing. It means going with the grain instead of against it. Think about a carpenter cutting wood. If he goes with the grain, the work is easy. If he goes against the grain, he has to force it, and the result is rough and splintered. Wu Wei is like that. It's acting in accordance with the natural flow of things, rather than constantly trying to impose your will on the universe. Now you might ask, but doesn't that mean just accepting everything? Doesn't that mean never trying to change anything? Not at all. Think about a sailor. A good sailor doesn't just accept the wind and the waves passively. He uses them. He tacks back and forth, he adjusts his sails, he reads the water, he's extremely active. But he's working with the forces of nature, not against them. That's Wu Wei. It's the art of intelligent spontaneity. It's being fully present and responsive to what's actually happening, rather than being lost in your thoughts about what should be happening or what you wish were happening. And this brings us to one of the most important points, the reality of the present moment. You see, the past is gone. It's nothing but a memory, which is a thought occurring now. The future hasn't happened yet. It's nothing but anticipation, which is also a thought occurring now. All we ever have is now, this moment, this eternal present. But most of us never live in the present. We're always somewhere else, in memories of the past, in plans for the future, in worries, in fantasies. We're like people at a concert who spend the whole time taking photographs instead of listening to the music. They get home with pictures of an event they never actually experienced. The art of living, the real hack of existence, is to be completely here, to be fully present, not to be thinking about where you're going or where you've been, but to be absolutely engaged with what's happening now. When you eat, really taste your food. When you listen to music, really hear it. When you talk to someone, actually listen instead of planning what you're going to say next. When you walk, feel your feet on the ground. Be here. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Because when you're fully present, something happens. Time stops. Not literally, of course, but experientially. The anxiety that comes from constantly projecting into the future disappears. The regret that comes from dwelling on the past disappears. You find yourself in a state that religious traditions have called by many names samadhi, presence, the kingdom of heaven, enlightenment. And it's available right now. You don't have to go anywhere or become someone different. You don't have to spend years meditating in a cave. You just have to wake up to what's already the case. Now, you might say, but if I just live in the present moment, how will I plan for the future? How will I be responsible? And that's a good question. But you see, There's a difference between being concerned with the future and being anxious about it. A farmer plants seeds in the spring not because he's anxious about autumn, but because that's what the spring calls for. He's responding to what's needed now. That's very different from lying awake at night worrying. Most of our planning and worrying is useless anyway. It's what I call rehearsing. We imagine conversations, we mentally prepare for difficulties, we run scenarios over and over in our heads. But when the actual situation arrives, it's never quite like what we imagined, and we have to respond spontaneously anyway. All that rehearsing was just anxiety masquerading as preparation. The secret is to trust yourself. Trust your ability to respond to whatever comes up when it comes up. After all, you've been doing it all your life. You learn to walk, to talk, to read, to do 1,000 complex things, not by anxiously figuring them all out in advance, but by doing them, by responding, by learning as you went along. Life is like jazz improvisation. There's a structure. Yes, there are notes and scales and rhythms, but within that structure, there's infinite freedom. The best jazz musicians aren't reading sheet music and carefully following instructions. They're listening, responding, creating in the moment. They're trusting the process. And that's the real hack of existence. Trust the process. Trust that you are the universe and the universe is you. Trust that you're playing exactly the game you most want to play, even if you've forgotten that you set it up this way. Trust that what's happening is what's supposed to be happening, not in a fatalistic sense, but in the sense that this is the game you're actually playing, so you might as well play it well. Now, there's a beautiful paradox here. On the one hand, I'm saying that life is a game and we should play it. On the other hand, there's nothing to achieve, nowhere to go, nothing to become. You're already it. You're already the universe. You're already complete. So how do we reconcile this? Well, the game is not about getting somewhere else. It's not about achieving some future state of enlightenment or perfection. The game is happening now. The point of dancing is not to get to a particular spot on the floor. The point of dancing is the dance itself. In the same way, the point of music is not to get to the end of the song. If that were true, the best music would be the fastest music. No, the point of music is the music itself, the sounds happening now, the melody unfolding in this moment. Life is like that. It's not going anywhere. There's no destination. You're not trying to get to death as quickly as possible. Life is what's happening along the way. This is it. And if you don't get it now, you won't get it later, because later never comes. There's only now, now, and now again. This is what the Zen Buddhists mean when they say, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities are the same. You still live your life, you still have responsibilities, you still have joys and sorrows, but the quality of your experience is completely different. You're no longer resisting what is. You're no longer trying to be somewhere else. You're here fully and completely. And from this presence, this acceptance, comes a kind of action that's very different from the anxious striving most of us engage in. It's spontaneous, creative, responsive. It's what happens when you get your ego out of the way and let life live through you. You see, most of us are trying to force life to conform to our ideas of what it should be. We have all these agendas and plans and demands. And when life doesn't cooperate, which is most of the time, we suffer. We think something's gone wrong. We think we've failed, or someone else has failed, or the universe has failed. But what if nothing has gone wrong? What if this is exactly what's supposed to be happening? Not because some external authority decreed it, but because this is what is happening. And what is happening is reality. Fighting with reality is like trying to swim against a rip current. It just exhausts you. The Taoists say, the Tao does nothing, yet nothing is left undone. This is Wu Wei again. It's like the way water flows. Water doesn't try to be powerful, but it can cut through stone. Water doesn't try to be useful, but it nourishes all life. Water simply follows the path of least resistance, and in doing so, it accomplishes everything. That's the way to live. Not by forcing, not by striving, not by constantly trying to make things happen, but by being fully present and responding to what the moment calls for, by going with the grain, by dancing with life rather than wrestling with it. Now, I realize this sounds paradoxical. I'm telling you to do something, to be present, to play the game, to practice Wu Wei. But at the same time, I'm saying there's nothing to achieve, nowhere to go. How do we make sense of this? Well, the paradox resolves itself when you realize that there's no separate you that has to do anything. There's just life happening. There's just the universe expressing itself through this particular form, this particular perspective that you call yourself. You don't have to make yourself be present any more than you have to make your heart beat or your hair grow. It happens by itself when you stop interfering. The interfering is the ego, this imaginary separate self that's always trying to control things, always trying to be somewhere else, always judging and comparing and worrying. When you see through that illusion, when you realize it's just a game you're playing with yourself, the interference stops. Not because you make it stop, but because you see it was never real in the first place. It's like waking up from a dream. In the dream, you're running from a monster, and it's terrifying, and you're trying as hard as you can to escape. Then you wake up and realize there was no monster. There was never any danger. It was all a dream. You don't have to try to stop being afraid. The fear simply dissolves when you see it wasn't real. That's what happens when you wake up from the ego illusion. You realize you were never separate. You were never in danger. You were never lacking anything. You were always the whole universe, just looking at itself from a particular point of view. And then life becomes extraordinarily simple. Not easy, necessarily. There are still challenges, still pain, still difficulties, but simple. Because you're not carrying around this enormous burden of being a separate self that has to protect itself and advance itself and prove itself. You're just here, fully, allowing life to be what it is. The Zen Buddhists have a saying, sitting quietly, doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows by itself. That's it. That's the whole secret. You don't have to make the grass grow. You don't have to make spring come. You don't have to make yourself enlightened or awakened or anything else. It happens by itself when you stop getting in the way. But, and this is crucial, stopping getting in the way is not something you do. It's something that happens when you see that you were never in control in the first place. When you see that the controller and the controlled are the same thing. When you see that the wave and the ocean are one. So what I'm giving you is not a technique, it's not a method, it's not a path to somewhere else. It's a pointing to what's already the case. You're already playing the game. You're already the universe. You're already complete. There's nowhere else to go and nothing else to become. The only question is, are you going to play consciously or unconsciously? Are you going to play with joy and freedom, or are you going to play with anxiety and resistance? Because either way, you're going to play. The game is happening, whether you like it or not. My suggestion is play consciously. Play with awareness. Play with the understanding that it's a game. Not in order to take it less seriously, quite the opposite. When you know it's a game, you can really throw yourself into it. You can play full out, with complete commitment, precisely because you know that win or lose, it's all part of the game. Think about children playing. They take their games very seriously. If you watch kids playing house or war or whatever, they're completely absorbed, but they haven't forgotten it's a game. They can stop any time. They're not neurotic about it. They're playing seriously, but not anxiously. That's the way to live. Take your life seriously in the sense of being fully engaged, fully present, giving it everything you've got. But don't take it seriously in the sense of being anxious about it, worried about it, thinking that if you don't win, something terrible will happen. Because the truth is, you can't lose. You're the one who invented the game in the first place. You're like a playwright who's become so absorbed in the play that you've forgotten you wrote it. You're sitting in the audience, nervous about what's going to happen to the characters, forgetting that you determined their fates. When you remember, when you wake up, you can relax and enjoy the drama. You can appreciate the whole thing, the comedy and the tragedy, the suspense and the resolution, because you know it's all part of the show. That's what it means to hack life. It's not about gaming the system or finding shortcuts or manipulating circumstances to get what you want. It's about seeing through the whole thing. It's about waking up to the fact that you are the system. You are the game. You are the player and the played, the seeker and the sought, the hide and the seek. And when you see that, everything becomes lighter. Not in the sense of being superficial or meaningless, but in the sense of being free. You're no longer carrying this enormous weight of being a separate self in a hostile universe, trying to survive, trying to succeed, trying to prove your worth. You're just here, dancing, playing, being the universe, experiencing itself. So go ahead, play the game. But play it knowing it's a game. Be fully engaged, but don't be anxious. Take risks. because that's what makes it interesting. Embrace uncertainty, because that's what makes it fun. And above all, be here now, because now is all there ever is. The meaning of life, if we can call it that, is simply to be alive, to be fully, completely, utterly here. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but now. Not thinking about being alive, but actually being alive. The grass grows, the birds sing, the sun rises and sets, and here you are, alive, aware, experiencing it all. That's the miracle. That's the game. And you're already playing it perfectly, whether you know it or not. My only suggestion is, know it, wake up to it, see it, and then, for heaven's sake, enjoy it. Because this is it. This is the whole show. And it's absolutely magnificent. Now, before we close, I want to address something that often troubles people when they first encounter these ideas. They say, but if life is just a game, if nothing ultimately matters, then why should I care about anything? Why should I be moral? Why should I try to do good? This is a misunderstanding, but an important one to clear up. You see, when I say life is a game, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Games matter tremendously to the people playing them. When you're playing chess, you care very much about your next move. When you're playing music, you care about hitting the right notes. The fact that it's a game doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it meaningful in a different way. The difference is this. When you know it's a game, you're not desperate. You're not clinging. You play with what we might call serious playfulness. You give it everything you've got, but you're not destroyed if you lose. You're like a great actor who throws himself completely into his role, but doesn't forget he's acting. And as for morality, here's something fascinating. When you realize you are everyone and everything, when you see through the illusion of separation, compassion arises naturally. Not because you should be compassionate, not because some authority told you to be good, but because hurting someone else is literally hurting yourself. It's not metaphorical, it's actual. You are that other person, just looking out from a different pair of eyes. So the person who truly understands this doesn't need rules and commandments. They don't need to be told, thou shalt not kill, because killing would be as absurd as your left hand attacking your right hand. When you know you're the whole universe, you treat all beings with the same care you naturally give to your own body, not out of duty, but out of recognition. This is what the Buddhists call karuna, compassion, and it's inseparable from prajna, wisdom. When you have real wisdom, real insight into the nature of things, compassion follows automatically. They are two sides of the same coin. So you see, recognizing life as a game doesn't lead to nihilism or immorality. Quite the opposite. It leads to a kind of morality that's more profound than following rules because you're afraid of punishment or hoping for reward. It's a morality that comes from understanding, from seeing how things actually are. And here's the beautiful thing. This understanding, this waking up, is available to anyone at any moment. You don't need special qualifications. You don't need to be a scholar or a saint. You just need to look, really look. Not with your intellect, but with your whole being. Look at what's actually happening right now, in this moment, and see if you can find this separate self you've been assuming is there. Where is it? Is it in your thoughts? But thoughts come and go. Which one is you? Is it in your feelings? But feelings change constantly. Which feeling is the real you? Is it your body? But your body is completely different from what it was 10 years ago. Every cell has been replaced. So, which body was you? The more you look, the more you realize there's no separate self to be found. There's just this present experiencing, this aware presence that's looking out from behind your eyes and mine and everyone's. One awareness, playing all the parts, pretending to be separate so the game can be interesting. And when you see this, really see it, everything shifts. Not that the world changes, but your relationship to it changes. You're no longer fighting against life, trying to bend it to your will. You're flowing with it, dancing with it, being it. And that, my friends, is what it means to truly live. That is the ultimate hack, the ultimate secret, the ultimate game. And it's been here all along, hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize it. So wake up. The game is on, and you're already playing. The only question is, will you play it consciously, or will you continue to sleepwalk through this magnificent adventure? The choice, as they say, is yours. Though, of course, even the choosing is part of the game.